Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, one of the interesting things, if you are into archaeology, etc., is the fact that plants evolve and they divide and become different groups. So if you are looking at fossils, and you can look at the fossil record for plant material, and you will see that at one time, magnolias and rhododendrons were of the same family. And then there was a break millions of years ago, and the magnolias went one way and the rhododendrons went another. So that gives you a little hint as to what you should be doing in order to encourage your both rhododendrons and your magnolias. As a result, you'll find that often magnolias will respond to a little bit of a rhododendron food that you're not used to putting on magnolias. So that's interesting. You might want to try it. I found it works, and I found that the response was very, very good. So sometimes a little too good, in fact. So don't overdo it when you do that. Try it, but try it judiciously. Now, when you go to pick out a rhododendron, you know you're going to be picking out one that's for hardiness. And rhododendrons have a different hardiness classification. And they're all called H1s, H2s, H3s. And there's a temperature that basically is assigned to each of those designations. Here in southern Ontario, we basically grow H1s. These are the hardiest. There are now more coming on that are out of Finland, Siberia, Russia, etc., that in breeding have become even hardier than H1s. So, they have almost unpronounceable names. They are very different in their look. They look a little more like azaleas than the big-leafed rhododendrons. So they are evergreen. And I think you'll find that you will enjoy them. But you're going to have to go looking for them. They'll be much smaller plants. And we're talking about much smaller plants both when you purchase them and as you grow them on. So let's talk a little bit about growing them on. Now, when you select an area for a rhododendron, you'll find that many of them like shade. And Nova Zembla rhododendron is one of the ones that tolerates a bit more sun. So it's a light red. It's very easy to grow. It's very common and very popular. So if you're going to start with a rhododendron, maybe start with that one. There are some others that you can try, but I think the yaks are the next easiest to grow as a classification. And when you go into a garden center, you're going to have to know what you're looking at. So get a couple of good books on rhododendrons long before you go and start designing your garden and going and picking out the rhodos that you want. There's a few things you want to look at. Shape, leaf size, and rate of growth and bloom time and color. All of those are considerations for which rhododendrons you actually buy. You don't want them all blooming at the same time. You don't want rhododendrons that are perfectly hardy here, but every once in a while you'll get a hard winter and the flower buds freeze off. So the plant does very well, but the flower bud basically dies and never blooms. And it just sits there at the end, and eventually botrytis sets in and they never even open, and you have to remove them. So Make sure that you're dealing with a reputable grower and nursery that knows their rhododendrons. Now, rhododendrons, I mentioned, come in different shapes. Now, shapes are not round. They're not oval. We're not talking about the shape of the leaf. We are talking about the way the plant grows. Most of the H1s that we're used to grow very upright in their form and become bare-stemmed as they get older. And a lot of people don't like this. Other people will plant those ones towards the back, and they'll put other rhododendrons or other plants in front to mix in to cover up those bare stems. So, what you're looking for, if that bothers you, is rhododendrons that will go and actually stay to the ground, spread as a mound, and grow as a mound. This means that you're going to control size and height as well. And you're going to have to learn how to prune rhododendrons. And a lot of people don't. They just are thankful that the thing grows. So it is important that you do understand rhododendrons, and a good book will do this for you. In fact, I don't think there's one good book, but there are many. And please take a look at my website, brucezimmerman.com, and there is a good article on rhododendrons as well. Now, I grow one type of rhododendron that is very bare. It has very large trusses of pink flowers, and those pink flowers are very, very sticky. So when you go to deadhead, everything, those petals, those florets, stick to everything. Stick to you, your hands, the plant, the leaves, the branches, and anything else, including the ground. Other rhododendrons will have the same effect, but to a lesser extent. So a small consideration if you're an impatient person when it comes to maintenance, because you can't leave the spent floret on a leaf, of course. It blocks out all the sun, causes some problems with leaf and tissue death. So it makes it look ugly. There's one that I grow called Shams Ruby. It's a light red. Everybody loves it. Everybody admires it. And it is a mound, but it is a big mound, and it spreads, and it has to be controlled for height. But what it does do is stay to the ground, so I never get bare stems. I mix my rhododendrons with daffodils because the daffodils and the rhododendrons often will do very well in the same type of soil. And here we're talking about rich, organic, well-drained soil that is slightly acidic. So that's a consideration right there as well when you're doing the planning for your garden. With rhododendrons, when you're going to go and start planting them, you've picked them out. You've got rhododendrons that are slightly different shapes, different shaped leaves, slightly different colored leaves, different blooming times, different colors of bloom, and some of them are also deciduous or semi-deciduous. Some of them are hardier than others. Some will bloom in April before the leaves come out. Others will bloom long after into May and even into early June in this area. So you can extend your blooming time by picking the correct rhododendrons. Again, you're going to have to do your research and go to a good nursery that knows what they've got and how to look after rhododendrons, because you want good quality ones. Now, you've selected a place that has shade. Now, this can be a north-northwest, even northeast location. Winter wind will cause you some problems if you're trying to push the less hardy varieties. So most people don't. But now, the first couple of years after they're planted, you may want to give them a little bit of protection, even if they're H1s. This is just to get them a little bit better established, and you and it can get used to each other. So, what I do is I put stakes in November, all the way around the rhododendron, about a foot away from the outer branches. And then I put burlap on. This can be stapled on, which is the easiest way. And the burlap should be about 1 to 2 inches above the ground, and it should be as much as 1 foot higher than the plant and open at the top. We do want some sun in there. We do want some snow in there. Snow is an insulator as well. We don't want our evergreen to actually go and get dry. So that's what that snow is going to do. It's also going to slow down the rhododendron in the spring, so it's not as susceptible to a late frost. Now, when you go to plant the rhododendrons, remember this, and this is terribly important. Rhododendrons do not put their roots down. They put them up each year. So the new roots don't go down, they go up. So it's extremely important that you go and you prepare the soil properly. Again, I said you're going to mix up all kinds of organic matter in there. You're going to work in at least 50% peat moss. Some people will also use bog peat, which is a black, more solid, soily, almost, if it was dry, it would look like clumps of coal. And that is usually a little more acidic than the peat that you get in bags. The peat in bags has had some lime added to it to bring the pH up of it to between 6 to 6.5. This is because it's so important to be in that plant range of pH so that most plants will actually grow, use, and utilize that fertilizer available at those pH levels. It's important. And that's why they do that. They don't tell you. You just need to know. But rhododendrons like a pH between 4.5, 5.5, but they will tolerate the higher 6 and 6.5. But the color of the leaves, the rate of growth, the intensity of color on the flowers is not as good as if you were more acidic. So, once you've got all the organic matter worked in, and you're going to find that by adding that much organic matter to the existing soil, that the whole bed will be raised at least 2 to 4 inches. And that is very good. It can be as high as 6 inches higher than the surrounding area. This gives you drainage. I have seen where in poor, heavier clay soils, they have dug down at least about almost 8 to 10 inches and then gone and dug even deeper. Now that's usually 4 to 6 inches. That 4 to 6 inches becomes a layer of gravel and existing modified acidic soil. The area above that, the 8 to 10, is the amount of soil necessary between the root ball or the container of roots on your rhododendron and the gravel mixture. That is how you're going to make sure that you've got your rhododendrons planted properly. The hole must be at least 2 to 3 feet bigger than the pot or the root ball when you're planting. When you are working it in, make sure that you go and you do not step on the root ball or on the root zone that was in the container. Very, very bad for rhodos, because remember, they don't put their roots down, they put them up each year. So, this means that once you're done, you're going to check the pH. You're going to find that it's too high. And you're going to add something to the soil to make it more acidic. This is usually garden sulfur. Now, garden sulfur can be very, very quick, depending on the size of the particle and, of course, the amount of concentration of the sulfur. Granular sulfur is probably the easiest to apply, but it is a little slower to get going. If you use a powdered sulfur, the pH change is almost instantaneous. We're talking minutes as opposed to months. So it's up to you, depending on what you know the pH is and how quickly you need to change it. The whole area of the rhododendron, that 2 to 3 foot hole, has to have the pH changed. It's then going to have the mulch put on. Okay? And it's so important that you do that. And that mulch should be pine needles. It can be pine bark. It can be cocoa beans, but it has to be slightly acidic. Peat moss will work as well. Again, it's a little less acidic, and peat moss has a tendency to basically not absorb moisture very well. It dries out very quickly. So the others are better, but when all else fails, peat moss annually. Okay, oak leaves are just wonderful. Shredded up oak leaves, absolutely gorgeous when you go to put it in around a rhododendron. So once you've got them all planted, you know how to look after them for the winter. You need a plant food. The plant food should be acidic, and it'll say for acidic loving plants. They're usually water soluble, which means they're very quick. Do not add them because they're mixed with water to wet soil, because you don't want the soil to be over wet. You want drainage, but you also don't want to apply a fertilizer to dry soil. So timing there is a little critical. The best rhododendron food I have ever found is an organic one, and it is rhododendron food by Espoma. Now, Espoma is hard to get, but if you go to a good garden center, you'll find it. Buy it in a big bag. It doesn't go bad. It's organic. But again, make sure you got old clothes on, because you're going to smell like the fertilizer. Not a pleasant smell. Water it in afterwards, and you should be good to go. That's all you need to do, but the fertilizer is not done past July 1st in this area, the Northeast. We don't want the plant growing too late and developing flower buds too late into the fall. We want them to harden off, okay? So there you go. Things you should know about selecting rhododendrons. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.